Hey, if you're here, awesome. These lessons on earthquakes and volcanoes are totally optional, but if you ask me, they're the most fun things to learn about when it comes to plate tectonics. So if you're here watching, that's awesome. If you choose to do the activity at the end of this lesson, it is totally up to you. You can get points for it, but you don't have to worry about getting a zero. And if you're here just to check out some cool things about earthquakes, that's awesome too. So, we talked about earthquakes being something that occurs at many of the plate boundaries. And earthquakes are something of interest to humans because they can have such a devastating impact on our lives, especially people who live in earthquake prone locations. So, listen, people have known about earthquakes forever. China is in a zone where a lot of major earthquakes occur, certain parts of China. And this ancient device is actually to detect earthquakes. It's real high tech, right? It's pretty cool. This is over 2,000 years old, and it was simply a jar filled with water that, if it was upset or tilted in any way, would release water. So, as the ground started to move and shake, this could detect it. Not super scientific, but I have a feeling it was more for decoration and art than anything. So, where do earthquakes occur? Okay, they occur at all of the plate boundaries. And rock can be under great amounts of stress, and then these forces that push or pull the rock in different ways can kind of let loose every once in a while. So imagine there's a stress buildup, and when the rock suddenly moves, an earthquake occurs. And this energy goes out in all directions and can be very, very far reaching. Believe it or not, rock can actually bend, fold, and stretch in a variety of ways. And any type of crack in a rock where stress is built is called a fault. So we call the San Andreas Fault in California is a break in the rock. All right, so we actually describe earthquakes based on where they occur. So there's some words that you might be interested in learning about if you decide to learn more about earthquakes. So earthquakes that occur on a fault line or a break in the rock um, usually produce what's called a focus. So this is the specific location where the earthquake originated. Now, this can be kind of hard to determine. Some earthquakes are shallow, which means they occur close to the surface. Some of them are very, very deep, and those would certainly affect people living nearby in different ways. The epicenter is the location on the surface directly above the focus. So when we talk about earthquakes, we might talk about how deep was the focus or where was the epicenter located. When we look at this earthquake map in a little bit, it's just going to show you the epicenter on the map, but you can learn more about the focus. So we didn't actually get to this lesson in Benchmark 2, but part of the reason that we know so much about Earth's interior is because we've actually mapped the earthquake waves that have gone through the earth. Now, waves travel through different materials differently. And it turns out that when we started to look at earthquake data across the globe at different seismograph, we got waves occurring and arriving at these different seismograph centers in different ways. So we have two types of waves that occur when an earthquake happens. We have P waves or primary waves and S waves or secondary waves. And a seismic station can record these waves from earthquakes that occur, a long, long ways away. We have really great detecting methods. Okay, and we found out there was these shadow zones. There were these zones where seismic stations were not receiving any waves, and then some zones where they were only receiving P waves and not S waves. We found out that the layers of the earth are made up of both liquids and solids. All right, so looking at this picture, which wave cannot travel through the solid of the core? Be the S waves. So that was kind of cool. We've known that for quite some time. A lot of people talk about the Richter scale when they hear about an earthquake. How bad was the earthquake? Well, it was a 4.5. Oh, excuse me, big yawn. On the Richter scale, there's actually two scales we use for rating how bad an earthquake was. There's a shake scale, that's the Mercalli scale, of how intense was the shaking. And then that is put next to the Richter scale, which is actually a measurement of the size of the seismic waves. So a large earthquake would be, 4 and up. People feel earthquakes that are of 4 and higher. And depending on where you are, you might be able to feel a few of these smaller earthquakes. But when we get up over 6, 7, 8, we're talking about huge disasters, and they have occurred. All right, so this is one of my favorite websites. This is the USGS Earthquake Tracker. I've been showing this website to my students for years because it's just really cool to check out where earthquakes are occurring in real time. I don't know if you will be able to find this since it's a couple years old, but in 2018, there was actually an earthquake in southern Michigan. And I believe there was one actually in 2019 maybe as well. So they do occur around us. And the one that was close to us, I actually felt. It was pretty cool. So let's check out this website. I'll show you how to use it. Okay. So right now we're looking at real-time data of earthquakes just in the United States. We can look at the whole world, and you can see all the different plate tectonic lines. And you can go to the settings if you want to see just today's, the last week, all 30 days, and what magnitudes. If we did 30 days, all these magnitudes, it says we can't display it. Continue anyways. Yeah, it's a lot of earthquakes. So let's just say, let's see if we got big ones in the last week. All right, so we can see every dot, and the size of the dot is related to the size of the earthquake, and then the color relates to how long ago it occurred. I believe red is the most recent, yes. So this was today. All right, so let's go to the United States. Let's go to California. They got a lot of earthquakes there. All right, and let's see all of them in the last 7 days. Look at all those earthquakes. So this is the San Andreas Fault. It's pretty busy. You can zoom in. If it'll let me. I mean, this is just a massive amount of earthquakes. If you sit here and watch it long enough, you can see them pop up. Okay, this one was near Parkfield, California. So let's say you wanted to learn more about it. It's going to give you the information down here. The exact location, magnitude was 1.7, where it was. It shows you the depth. So the focus was about 1.2 kilometers deep. So this is just lots of fun. I actually had a student years ago, email me in the summertime. She wanted me to know that there was an earthquake out on the East Coast. And it was funny because even though I think it was in Delaware, there were people in some taller buildings in Michigan that felt it. Okay, so if you're interested in getting some extra points and putting a little bit of effort into this, you can answer the journal questions after reading this article. So this is asking, does it matter where an earthquake occurs? Is it a shallow earthquake or a deep earthquake that really causes the most destruction? And if you want to do it, great. If you just want to go to the USGS Earthquake Tracker and just look up data on earthquakes, I know if you did some digging, you could probably find the earthquake that occurred in Michigan. It's just kind of cool data. We don't have any active fault lines, but some ancient fault lines that are very deep within can still produce some earthquakes. And by all means, if you have any questions about any of this or want to know more about earthquakes or the earthquake tracker, just email me. I would love to talk to you about it. So I will give you one more optional lesson tomorrow on volcanoes and some instructions on how you can make your own volcano. Super fun.